Alien girl misunderstands human's apology gesture, but human finds the gesture crowned her. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's return to our main character. Ethan Cole felt the lab's recycled air shiver as the overhead lights flickered, a soft hum rising through the metal floor. A pressure valve somewhere behind him sighed, the sound sharp in the quiet room. He winced at the cracked container on the counter. His mistake, a dropped sample jar, nothing dangerous but enough to disrupt Sayla's carefully arranged workstation. He stepped forward, instinctive apology rising in his chest. He pressed his hand lightly to his sternum, then brushed his fingertips across his forehead in the simple gesture his mother taught him when he was a kid. I'm really sorry, Sayla. That one's on me. The room went still, like the air itself held its breath. Sayla turned toward him slowly, her blue-violet skin catching the cool lab glow, her silver-flecked eyes widening in something far heavier than annoyance. She straightened as if observing a ceremony, her posture suddenly regal. Human, she whispered, voice soft but edged with awe. You do not offer coronation so casually. Ethan blinked. Coronation? The word felt huge, misplaced, floating far above his pay grade. No, that was just me apologizing. Sayla's gaze deepened, searching his features as if confirming a vow. The small crest embedded near her collarbone pulsed once, a faint shimmer beneath the skin. She took a step back, then bowed her head in a slow, deliberate arc. Ethan's stomach tightened. He'd seen her give professional respect, but nothing like this. This looked ritualistic, like he'd invoked something sacred. Sayla, I think we're having two very different conversations here, he murmured. She lifted her head, calm but solemn. Your gesture is known among my people as the crowning, a symbolic placing of honor upon another. It is never accidental. Ethan exhaled sharply, rubbing his palm against his jeans. Yeah, well, where I'm from, it's just my bad. I didn't crown anybody. Her silver-flecked eyes softened, but not with humor. More like confusion wrapped in fragile hope. You placed your hand upon your heart, she said quietly, and then your mind. It is the sign of choosing. Ethan felt heat rise to his cheeks, not embarrassment exactly, but the unsettling awareness that he'd wandered into the middle of someone else's culture with muddy boots. He tried again, slower this time. Sayla, I wasn't choosing anything. I was taking responsibility for messing up your workstation. But she only tilted her head, studying him with the kind of focus she usually reserved for complex biological puzzles. The hum of the lab deepened, monitors clicking softly around them. For a moment Ethan thought he saw something fragile flicker across her expression, like the idea of being chosen, even by mistake, meant something more than she was ready to say. Human apologies are unusual, she murmured at last. Unpredictable, yet yours felt sincere, heavy with meaning. Ethan sighed, but gently. It was sincere, just not crown-level sincere. Her crest glowed again, faint but unmistakably warm. We will revisit this, she said softly. Ethan had no idea what that meant. But the way she looked at him, like he had just shifted the gravity in her world, told him this misunderstanding was only the beginning. Ethan Cole spent the next few minutes pretending to reorganize the scattered tools on the workstation, but his hands moved without rhythm, each small clink of metal echoing the confusion in his chest. The lab felt too quiet now, the soft hum of the air filtration system filling the space where his usual easy banter would go. Sayla stood a few feet away, her posture composed, hands clasped gently at her waist, as if she was trying to steady something inside herself. The glow near her collarbone had faded to a faint shimmer, but Ethan kept catching her glancing at him, like she was studying the memory of what he had done rather than the man himself. He cleared his throat, trying to reset the moment. So, what exactly does this crowning ritual mean? He asked, aiming for casual, though his voice betrayed a tiny tremor. Sayla blinked slowly, her features softening. It is a gesture reserved for moments of great sincerity, she said. A symbol that one acknowledges the worth of another. It is not romantic. It is not political. It is honoring. Ethan let out a slow breath. Okay, Honoring. That sounds nice. But I did not actually crown anyone. I just made a mistake and felt bad about it. She tilted her head, the silver strands of her hair catching the cool, overhead light. Human intentions are complex, she murmured. Your apology did not feel small. It carried weight. That weight is what my people interpret as the beginning of the gesture. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, well, I carry a lot of weight when I mess up. Comes with being human. She watched him with a gaze that felt both analytical and strangely gentle. You misunderstand something, she said. My reaction was not because you performed the entire ritual. You did not. But you began it. And even beginning it is rare. Ethan stilled. Rare how? She hesitated, then answered with quiet honesty. Among my people, beginning the gesture means you see someone as deserving of respect before they have proven themselves. Ethan swallowed. And that surprised you? It humbled me, she said softly. The words lingered in the air between them, warm and fragile. Ethan looked at her more closely. He noticed the subtle tightness in her shoulders, the way she held her hands together, as if unsure where they belonged. He realized she was not upset. She was overwhelmed. He felt something in his chest loosen. Selah, he began. Back home, apologizing is just part of being decent. It means I recognize you deserve better than what happened. It is not a ceremony. It is just the right thing to do. She considered that, her expression thoughtful. Perhaps that is what makes it powerful, she murmured. Your people give honor without ritual, without requirement, freely. Ethan exhaled, softer this time. We try. She stepped closer, only an inch, but it felt deliberate. I would like, she said carefully, to understand your way. If you are willing to explain it. Ethan nodded. Yeah, I can do that. A quiet beep interrupted them as a console registered a completed scan, the sound gentle but grounding. Ethan reached for the tablet, but his eyes lingered on Selah's face. She no longer looked like someone correcting a colleague's mistake. She looked like someone seeing him, fully, for the first time. And when she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. Your apology, she said, felt like something I had not known I needed. Ethan felt the warmth of her words settle into him, steady and real. He did not know what this misunderstanding had started, but he knew it was no longer just a misunderstanding. The lab settled into a gentle rhythm as Ethan reviewed the scan results, the soft glow of the tablet reflecting off polished metal surfaces. Selah hovered nearby, her attention divided between the readings and the lingering weight of their earlier exchange. The quiet was not uncomfortable. It felt like space that had opened between them, space that neither of them quite knew how to fill yet. Ethan set the tablet down and glanced toward the small storage shelf. A replacement sample jar sat on the top, its clear surface catching the lab lights. He picked it up, turning it over in his hands. Let me fix what I actually messed up, he said lightly. Selah watched him step back to her workstation, noting how carefully he now moved around her tools. The awareness made something warm rise in her expression, subtle but unmistakable. You do not need to repair everything, she said softly. Some things are simply small mistakes. Ethan smiled. Yeah, but small mistakes can slow you down, and I am not adding more stress to your day. She tilted her head slightly. You assume you are a source of stress? Pretty sure I caused at least 10 minutes of it earlier, he replied. Her gaze softened again, that same searching look she had offered him before. Not stress, she corrected gently. Confusion. Surprise. Perhaps curiosity. Ethan paused. Curiosity is not so bad. It is not, she agreed. She moved closer, her steps light, almost soundless on the composite flooring. She examined the repaired setup, her fingers hovering just above the jar before settling to adjust a sensor. Her hands were steady, graceful, every motion precise. Your way of apology, she said after a moment. Does it always begin with the heart? Ethan shrugged, trying to explain without overthinking. Pretty much. My mom used to say an apology only matters if you mean it here first. He tapped his chest. Then you show it on the outside. Selah considered that, her eyes tracing the gesture. Your mother taught you rituals as well. Ethan chuckled. I guess so. Just not crown-level rituals. Her features shifted with a brief spark of amusement, the first real sign of ease since the misunderstanding began. It is interesting, she said, that your people follow unspoken customs you do not call rituals. Ethan leaned against the edge of the counter. Well, Maybe we are all doing rituals without knowing it. Sayla's fingers brushed lightly along the rim of a monitor, her mind moving to a different place. Among my people, she began, we complete the crowning only after a shared moment of truth. A moment where both individuals reveal something sincere. Ethan straightened. That sounds personal. It is, she said, which is why I reacted strongly. I believed, for a moment, that you intended such a moment. Ethan felt his breath catch, not out of fear, but from the unexpected vulnerability she revealed. Sayla, he said gently, if I ever did something like that on purpose, you would not have to guess. She looked up at him, her blue-violet eyes reflecting a quiet sincerity. Then perhaps, she said slowly, I misread more than just your gesture. I may have misread the meaning behind your presence today. Ethan opened his mouth to reply, but before he could, a soft chime rang through the room, signaling the end of their calibration cycle. The sound grounded them, steady and familiar. Sayla glanced at the monitor, then back at Ethan. We have completed the initial sequence, she said, though her voice held a warmth that had not been there earlier. Ethan nodded. Good. Then we are back on track. Yes, she said softly, but her eyes lingered on him for just a moment more, as if silently acknowledging that they were on a different kind of track as well. The calibration chime faded, leaving the lab wrapped in a soft stillness. Monitors pulsed in slow intervals, casting gentle lines of blue across the floor. Ethan leaned over the console to log their progress, but his attention drifted toward Sayla. She stood near the observation window, hands clasped behind her, watching the flicker of distant lights that marked the station's outer docking ring. Her posture looked composed, but the quiet around her carried something unspoken. Ethan set the tablet aside. You are awfully reflective today, he said, keeping his tone light but sincere. Sayla did not turn immediately. I am considering your words, she replied. Apologies that come from the heart. Honor that is given freely. These are concepts my culture approaches with caution. Ethan stepped closer but left enough space for her comfort. Well, humans tend to rush into things with more enthusiasm than planning. It is part of our charm, or so I have been told. That earned a subtle lift of her brow, the faintest sign of amusement. She glanced at him, her expression thoughtful. Enthusiasm can be admirable. It can also be dangerous. He nodded. Yeah, we do make a mess of things sometimes. But we learn from it. Ideally, she shifted her focus back to the window. In my culture, intention is weighed heavily. Words or gestures are measured, sometimes rehearsed. Sincerity is proven only after many steps. Ethan followed her gaze to the drifting lights outside. That sounds exhausting. Her lips curved in a soft, almost accidental smile. It can be. A moment passed, quiet and steady. Then Sayla spoke again, her voice carrying a gentleness that surprised him. When you apologized earlier, it felt genuine, immediate. It bypassed the steps I am accustomed to. It unsettled me, but not in a harmful way. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. I honestly did not expect an apology to have that kind of impact. It did, she said simply. And I am still trying to understand why. He thought about how carefully she weighed her words, how precisely she carried herself. She lived in a world where every gesture had layers, where meaning was not given but earned. Maybe that was why his instinctive sincerity stood out to her. For what it is worth, he said quietly, you do not need a ritual for me to respect you. Sayla turned toward him fully now. The light caught the silver threads in her hair, giving them a soft shimmer. Respect, she repeated, as if testing the feel of the word. Among my people, declaring respect requires public acknowledgement. Ethan shook his head gently. Among mine, it is shown through actions. Simple ones. Day by day. She absorbed that, her eyes softening. Actions, she murmured. Like repairing what you broke. Like asking how I feel rather than assuming. Ethan smiled. Exactly like that. She stepped a little closer, her expression more open than he had ever seen it. Then perhaps, she said, I would like to learn your way of showing respect. If you are willing to teach me. Ethan felt something warm settle in his chest. Not dramatic. Not ceremonial. Just real. Yeah, he said softly. I can do that. Sayla held his gaze for a long, quiet moment. Then, with a breath that sounded almost like relief, she said, Thank you, Ethan Cole. Your sincerity continues to surprise me. And for the first time that day, he felt the misunderstanding shift into something that no longer felt like a mistake at all. The next cycle began with the soft hum of the lab easing into its daytime brightness, a gentle rise of overhead lights that cast pale reflections across every polished surface. Ethan arrived early, a habit he had never bothered to explain, but one Sayla had already started to notice. He liked the quiet before the rest of the station woke. He liked the calm. Today, though, he found Sayla already inside, standing near the hollow display with her hands folded carefully in front of her. The faint glow of the screen painted her blue-violet skin in cool tones, giving her an almost serene presence. "You are early," he said, surprised. She did not turn immediately, but he saw the small shift of her shoulders, the subtle mark of someone acknowledging another's arrival without needing to speak. "I wish to review the data set before we continue," she replied. Then, after a small pause, she added, "And I wish to practice something." Ethan stepped closer, curiosity settling into his voice. "Practice what?" Sayla faced him fully, her expression thoughtful and steady. "A human gesture of respect," she said. "You mentioned your culture shows honor through daily actions, not ceremonial phrases. I wish to understand that better." Ethan blinked. "Okay, sure. Where do we start?" She hesitated, her fingers tracing an invisible pattern at her side, as though preparing herself. "I observed that when humans wish to express gratitude or acknowledgement, they sometimes offer their hand. It is a sign of mutual regard." Ethan smiled. "A handshake. Yeah, that is pretty universal back home. I have never performed it," she admitted. "But I would like to learn." Her honesty landed softly between them, gentle yet significant. Ethan extended his hand, slow and open. "It is simple. You just take my hand and give it a light shake. Nothing too firm, nothing too soft." Sayla studied his hand as if it were a delicate instrument, then lifted her own. Her fingers were cool at first touch, then warmed quickly against his skin. She closed her hand around his with careful precision, her grip controlled, her movements cautious. Ethan felt the sincerity in the gesture immediately. She was not mimicking a ritual. She was offering trust. "Is this correct?" she asked quietly. "Yeah," he said, voice softer than he expected. "That is perfect." She released his hand slowly, as if returning something valuable to its place. "Your people express respect in such small motions," she said. "Direct, immediate, uncomplicated." "We try to make it uncomplicated," Ethan replied. "Life does the opposite on its own." Sayla considered that, her gaze dipping briefly to the floor before lifting again. "There is something grounding about it. I can see why your people use this gesture. It makes intentions clear." Ethan nodded. "That is the idea. No guessing. No ceremony." She took a slow breath, letting it settle. "It is comforting," she admitted, "to be understood without needing a sequence of steps." Ethan met her eyes, noticing how open they had become, how the guarded edges he once saw had softened. "You do not need a sequence with me," he said. "Just honesty. That is enough." Sayla held his gaze for a long moment, the quiet around them deepening into something steady and real. Then she said, with a calm sincerity that felt like a step forward, "Then I will offer honesty as my gesture today." The room felt warmer for a beat, the hum of equipment softening into the background. Ethan waited, patient. Sayla continued, her voice gentle. "Your presence has not caused me confusion today. It has brought clarity." And the way she said it made Ethan realize she was no longer learning his culture. She was choosing to understand him. The station's midday cycle cast a warm, steady glow through the lab's ceiling panels, softening the usual clinical brightness. Ethan adjusted a calibration module on the central console, but he kept glancing towards Sayla, who stood beside a storage drawer filled with delicate instruments. She examined each tool with slow, deliberate motions, but her mind seemed far away. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a calm steadiness that made Ethan pause. "Ethan Cole," she said, "may I ask you something without causing offense?" He straightened, wiping his hands on a cloth. "Of course. Ask anything." She approached him, her steps quiet and controlled. "Earlier, you taught me a gesture of human respect. I accepted it because it was sincere. But I do not understand why simple sincerity carries such weight among your people. You honor without prerequisite. You trust without ceremony. How do you determine who is deserving?" Ethan leaned against the counter, thinking. I do not think we decide who deserves respect. We just give it. At least, that is how I try to live. You start from kindness and go from there. Sayla absorbed that, her expression shifting with thoughtful intensity. So respect is not earned first. Not always, he replied. Earning respect builds on it, sure. But giving basic respect at the start says you are willing to see someone fully, even before you know everything about them. She folded her hands in front of her. In my culture, seeing someone fully is a profound act. It requires ritual, time, shared declarations. Ethan smiled softly. Maybe humans skip a few steps. She considered that. Perhaps skipping steps allows you to reach sincerity faster. Ethan chuckled gently. Or maybe it just means we sometimes stumble into moments we do not understand. Her gaze softened. Like the moment with your apology. Exactly like that, he said. Sayla stepped closer. Close enough that Ethan could see the tiny silver flecks in her irises reflecting the overhead lights. I wish to understand your way, she said. But I also wish to reconcile it with my own. There is meaning in what my culture teaches. Meaning that does not conflict with yours, but complements it. Ethan nodded, sensing the importance of her admission. Then explain it to me. Explain how your people show respect. She hesitated for a breath. In my culture, when one acknowledges another's worth, they do not speak at first. They observe. They learn. They offer presence rather than declarations. Ethan's voice gentled. Presence sounds a lot like trust. She met his eyes. It is. And earlier, when I attempted your handshake, I realized something. You offered me trust before I knew how to return it. He felt something shift in the air, subtle but warm. You returned it, he said. The moment you reached for my hand. Sayla looked down at her fingers, as if remembering the sensation. Then perhaps we are learning each other's ways simultaneously. Ethan felt a quiet pride settle into him. I think so. For a long moment, neither spoke. The lab hummed with low, steady life. Sayla broke the silence with a gentle question. Ethan, when you honored me with your apology, even by accident, what did you feel? He took a slow breath. Honestly, I felt responsible. And I wanted you to know that I respected you enough to say so. She absorbed that without looking away. Then your intention was pure. Yeah, he said softly. It was. Sayla's voice lowered, calm and sure. Then know this. In my culture, purity of intention is the highest form of respect, greater than any ritual. And hearing that, Ethan finally understood that whatever misunderstanding had started between them had become something much clearer now. Something neither of them needed to interpret through ceremony or chance. The station shifted into its late afternoon cycle, the lights dimming just enough to cast long, soft shadows across the lab. Ethan finished securing the calibration module, but his focus kept drifting towards Sayla, who stood near the central holotable, reviewing their data with a quiet intensity. She looked calm, but something about the set of her shoulders told him her thoughts were elsewhere. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a tone he had not heard from her before, gentle yet edged with concern. Ethan Cole, she said, earlier you mentioned that humans sometimes stumble into moments without intending to. I have been thinking about that. He turned toward her. In a good way or a bad way? In a revealing way, she replied. She stepped closer, the overhead glow catching the faint shimmer along her collarbone crest. There is a concept in my culture. When two individuals cross paths at a time of emotional uncertainty, it is believed the universe is testing whether their intentions hold steady under pressure. Ethan raised a brow. Sounds like a heavy test. It can be, Sayla said softly. It is called the moment of wait. Ethan leaned against the counter, sensing this was important. And what exactly does it test? She hesitated, then answered with quiet honesty. Whether sincerity remains when circumstances shift. Whether a person's truth stays aligned with their actions. Ethan nodded slowly. Okay, I can get behind that. Sayla looked up at him, her gaze steady. I believe we have reached such a moment. He felt a small tug in his chest, not of fear, but of focus. Right now? Yes. She motioned toward the holotable. Our next sequence requires manual alignment of the environmental controls. A minor adjustment, but one that my people consider symbolic. It demonstrates trust through shared responsibility. Ethan smiled. So a teamwork test. Something like that, she said, though her tone carried deeper meaning. She gestured for him to stand beside her. When he approached, She placed her hand lightly over the central control dial, then looked at him. We align this together, she explained. If one person hesitates, the system detects imbalance. And if neither hesitates? Ethan asked. Then it confirms harmony of intention. Ethan slowly placed his hand beside hers on the dial. Her fingers were steady, her posture centered. He felt her presence more than her touch, a quiet focus that settled the air around them. Ready? He asked. Yes, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. They turned the dial together, a slow, synchronized motion. A soft chime sounded immediately, a gentle tone that pulsed through the room. Selah exhaled, the breath easing from her, as though she had carried tension for hours. It accepted the alignment, she murmured. Ethan grinned. So we passed the test? She turned to him fully, her expression open and unguarded. It means our intentions matched, that our sincerity held steady. Ethan felt warmth settle in his chest, deep and quiet. I meant every part of my intention, he said. Then this moment confirms it, she replied. A silence followed, calm and grounding. Selah looked down at their hands still resting near the dial, then back up at him. Ethan, she said softly. In my culture, the moment of wait is rarely completed without hesitation. Yet you did not waver. He met her gaze gently. Neither did you. Her crest shimmered once, subtle and warm. Perhaps, she said, we are beginning to understand each other more than either of us expected. And in that stillness, Ethan realized the misunderstanding that started everything had transformed into something true, simple, and unmistakably shared. The soft chime from the aligned control dial faded, leaving a gentle stillness that settled over the lab like a warm blanket. Selah's fingers lingered a moment longer near Ethan's before she drew her hand back with deliberate calm, as if grounding herself after something quietly significant. The lighting shifted into early evening mode, bathing the room in a muted amber glow that softened the edges of every instrument and cast calm reflections across the polished surfaces. Ethan watched her step away from the console, her movements measured, thoughtful. There was no tension in her posture now, only a quiet composure that felt new. You said our intentions matched, Ethan said, breaking the silence but keeping his voice low. What does that actually mean in your culture? Selah paused near the hollow table and touched its surface lightly, expanding a soft blue projection. It means the universe has acknowledged a shared path, she said. Not a binding path, not a vow, simply a recognition that two individuals are aligned in purpose. Ethan nodded slowly. That sounds meaningful. It is, she said without looking away from the projection. It is not common. Most alignments fail because one person hesitates. She turned to him then, her expression warm but serious. You did not hesitate, Ethan Cole. You moved with clarity. He exhaled, a small laugh escaping him. Truth is, Selah, I did not know it was a test until afterward. I was just trying to work with you. And that is why it mattered, she replied gently. She walked back toward him, stopping at a comfortable distance. Your sincerity was not performed. It simply existed. Ethan felt something shift again, a quiet but unmistakable pull. Selah, he said, you have been trying to understand my way of showing respect, but I think your way has more layers than I realized. She inclined her head slightly. Our traditions evolved to preserve meaning. Words can be misleading. Rituals provide clarity. But I am beginning to see the value in your approach. Which is, he asked. That clarity can come from honesty rather than structure, she said. From intention rather than choreography. The room hummed softly around them, a calm orchestra of electronics and steady airflow. Ethan leaned a hip against the counter. So, does this alignment thing change anything between us? Selah considered his question with care. It changes understanding, she said. It changes how I interpret your actions and how I choose to respond. Ethan watched her closely. Do you see me differently now? She met his gaze without hesitation. I see you more clearly, she said. And I see that my earlier assumption, that your apology was an accidental beginning of a ritual, was incomplete. Ethan frowned slightly. Incomplete how? Selah stepped closer, her voice soft but certain. You did not begin a ritual. You began a truth. And the truth was that you valued me enough to acknowledge your mistake without expectation. Ethan blinked, taken aback by the simplicity and weight of her words. Selah, I just wanted to show you respect. You did, she replied. And in my culture, when someone shows such respect without knowing its significance, it reveals something important. Ethan felt his heartbeat steady, deep and quiet. Reveals what? Sayla's crest shimmered faintly, a warm pulse beneath her skin. It reveals that their heart speaks a language even they have not fully learned. For a moment, neither of them moved. The air felt gentle, filled with the kind of silence that did not demand explanation. Sayla lowered her gaze briefly, then lifted it again with quiet resolve. Ethan Cole, she said softly, I now understand why your gesture felt like a crowning. Not because you performed a ritual, but because you offered a form of honor my people rarely receive from outsiders. Ethan swallowed, feeling the meaning settle inside him. I meant every part of it, he murmured. She nodded once, the motion small but filled with certainty. And now, she said, I see the intention behind it with new clarity. Evening settled deeper around them as the lab lights dimmed another shade, and in that quiet glow, Ethan realized something had shifted not by accident, but by recognition. The evening cycle deepened into a soft indigo hue, the lab settling into a quiet that felt almost alive. Subtle reflections shimmered along the metallic panels as the station rotated, creating drifting bands of light that moved across the floor like slow-moving tides. Ethan powered down the last console, but his attention stayed fixed on Sayla, who stood near the observation window with her hands lightly pressed against the transparent panel. Beyond her, the stars formed a silent river. She did not turn when she spoke. There is something I must tell you, Ethan Cole. It concerns the gesture you made. The one you believed was only an apology. Ethan stepped closer, stopping a respectful distance behind her. You can tell me anything. Sayla's breath fogged the glass for a brief moment before fading into nothing. When my people witness a gesture of sincere acknowledgement, even a simple one, they sometimes respond with an instinctive interpretation. Not because they misunderstand, but because their hearts hope. Ethan felt something shift inside him. Hope for what? She finally turned to face him. Her blue-violet eyes held a quiet depth, illuminated by the soft light filtering through the window. Hope that the universe has brought them someone who sees them without needing instruction. She paused. Someone who honors them without knowing the rules. Ethan's voice lowered. Is that what you felt? Sayla stepped closer, her movements graceful, deliberate. At first, I believed I misinterpreted. Then I believed you had accidentally begun a ritual. But now I understand that what I felt was not tied to ritual at all. Her crest shimmered faintly, a soft pulse like a heartbeat beneath her skin. It was tied to intention. Your intention. Ethan held her gaze, steady and sincere. My intention was to respect you. To show you mattered. Sayla nodded slowly. Exactly. And in my culture, when a gesture carries such meaning, even unintentionally, it is said to crown the heart of the one receiving it. Ethan blinked gently. Crown the heart. Yes, she whispered. It means the moment leaves an imprint. A recognition that cannot be undone. The lab's shadows stretched across the floor as the station's rotation shifted the angle of light. Neither of them moved. Sayla took a slow breath. The misunderstanding was mine, Ethan. But the meaning was not. Your gesture crowned me because I wished it to. Not because you intended it. He absorbed her words with quiet depth. Sayla, he said softly, I did not mean to start something I did not understand. You did not start something, she replied gently. You revealed something. Her voice lowered, steady and warm. You revealed the kind of person you are. Ethan felt the truth of her words settle over him like the soft glow of the station lights. He stepped to the window beside her, watching the drifting stars. Then let me be clear with you now, he said. Everything I have said and done was honest. Not ritual. Just me. Sayla's expression softened in a way he had never seen. A calm acceptance, a quiet certainty. Then know this, Ethan Cole, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. My people say that when two individuals reach a place of shared clarity, the universe recognizes it. Ethan turned toward her. Recognizes it how? Sayla lifted her hand, not to begin a ritual, not to mimic one, but simply to place it over her chest in a gesture of her own culture's sincerity. The faint light of the lab caught the edges of her fingers as she spoke with calm conviction. By marking the moment in silence. Ethan understood. No ceremony. No misunderstanding. Only meaning. They stood together in the quiet glow of the observation window, the stars reflecting in Sayla's eyes like tiny sparks of recognition. And in that stillness, without words, the universe marked their moment exactly as her people believed it would.